Hello and welcome to the new type of video that I'm going to be making. This is going to be more of a podcast-esque style video where I just choose a topic, make a coffee, and then we talk about it for however long. I don't want this to be a super edited video. In fact, it's probably not going to be edited at all. It's going to be like slightly changed for color variation because I spent a lot of time playing with lights. But overall, there's not going to be me cutting out huge swaths of information or me just going off on a tangent, because the whole point of this is to take a topic and just explore it with my own mind. If there's anything that sparks interest to you guys, write it in the comments below, because then I can actually go and take that idea, move it further, and actually turn that into its own full-fledged video. So hopefully this becomes more of a two-way street than the other videos, where it's me going, here's the information I've learned, in a way that hopefully you can understand. But if you haven't already, feel free to go make a beverage of your choice. Again, I prefer coffee. And then we can actually get started. This whole video is going to be based around the concept of why we play games and why it is so effective to play games in all aspects of our life. So to start off with, a little bit of context for me. I grew up obsessed with games in that age just before games were cool. I was bullied for it. It's a whole thing. But the point being that they have always been a part of my life. I've always found a connection with games in a way that at first wasn't anything more than just, oh, things do happen when I press the buttons and it changes around me, and the engagement of that. Because it was a way that I could have this freedom to do what I want. Now, I'm sure there's multiple areas as to why that's a thing. But in particular, the reason why I loved that was because it was a sandbox. It was somewhere where I could experiment in doing what I wanted without having these huge repercussions in real life. I could go and experience what fighting was like without actually having to get into a fight. And aspects like this, where it was an area that was safe. And as I grew older, I started to analyze this in a different way. I started to go, why are games so effective? Why is it this aspect of when I play a game, I become so much more engaged with that than when I am in real life? One of the big things that I always struggle with was in school, I'm sure there was an aspect of undiagnosed ADHD or something, but I wasn't super interested in a lot of the topics we were getting taught. I was told to do something a certain way and I didn't like it. But then when I got home, I jumped in a game and was like, what is the super detailed report that I can read to figure out that one little thing that makes me play better in this regard? I was studying at a much higher level than I was at anything at school for a game that I forgot about in a month or two. And that fascinated me. Why was I so much more engaged with this fleeting moment of a game than I was that arguable aspect of the education that was going to make me much more successful in life? Won't get into that as a whole other aspect of why I don't really appreciate the way schooling is done. All power to schools, and particularly the teachers that are actually running the schools. But yeah, the systems in place for them, not the best. So moving forward, I started getting in love with the concept of design and building games. I went to university to study aspects like video game design, animation, whatnot. And then I moved into a career of design and animation in advertising and whatnot. And during that time, I started to really delve into what makes people tick. How can you create a design that makes someone want to buy something? How can you write a piece of copy that makes them feel emotionally engaged with whatever you're talking about? And animation, how do you make someone watch this part versus this part of a screen? And those small aspects of trying to figure out attention and how to interpret someone's interest in something to help pivot them to think the way that you're thinking, or at least in the areas that you're thinking. And then I started getting into the psychology of manipulation and these aspects that are used in our everyday life, whether we like it or not. There is these fundamental attributes that we interact with every single day. Ads, videos. The fact you're watching this video right now is proof of that concept, because you saw a title or a thumbnail. Now, chances are you probably are not already following me. And if you aren't, feel free to follow. This is going to be hopefully a more enjoyable journey for us all if we're all in it together. But chances are, based on the size of my channel, than the views that I actually get, you are not already following my channel. But you saw a picture and you saw a headline that made you go, oh, that's interesting, I want to find out more about that. Then you click into it. And if you've gotten this far, the topics I've been talking about enough at this point, you've gone, oh, this could be interesting, and continued watching. Thank you for that, by the way. it was all an aspect of having studied what works, what makes people click on a video, what makes people think, oh, that is something that I want to engage with. And that's all around us in life. Be it from when you open up your phone for the first time all day, when you see a billboard, when you're actually just talking to people around you, if you're trying to get a job raise and whatnot, being able to understand what the person you're trying to talk to wants is a big benefit. So these aspects were something I actively studied. I was doing it because as a job, that's what I needed to understand in order to make my things more effective. Yes, I could make them more visually beautiful, get more technique in the way that I design a character. But at the end of the day, I started to fall in love with the business of it all. I started to fall in love with what are the metrics that people are actually seeing as the successful campaigns versus the unsuccessful ones. And it was that idea of understanding the end user and how you could interpret the visual so that they'd start thinking and acting in a certain way. All the while, throughout all of this, I was actively playing video games. In particular, though, I am always been a single player game type person where, yes, the online experiences are interesting. I enjoy playing games with friends and whatnot, but when I'm playing a game intentionally, I love it to be a single player game because I can fully envelop myself in that world. I can fully delve in and go, I am a clean slate. Guide me how you will. So then you start playing all these different games that have different perspectives on society or how people interact and other people's perspectives on the world. And you get to experience that through their eyes. And then a couple of years later, I was 23 years old and I was offered to then lecture and teach back at the university in which I studied and graduated from. Starting out with the topic of animation, then slowly maneuvering my way through the different classes till I was teaching video game design and advertising and all these types of aspects that I was somewhat aware I was fascinated with because it was what I was doing. But I didn't really know how to articulate those thoughts until I was put in a position where I needed to articulate those thoughts so other people could understand. And in doing so, I started to really think about these topics, these psychology tricks in a different way because, yes, they were always used in the products that I was creating, but I never really thought of it in the lens of how can I get a person to understand this? How can I get some random person that I've never met before? How can I have them understand these topics and then go forward using them to their benefit? Because a lot of the times, these are subliminal topics. They're things that you don't think about, but you're affected by. So making people aware of them and then how to use them in a good manner versus manipulation, it's a very interesting back and forth because you need to figure out what the crux of the information is. And then, like any sort of weapon, it is then devised as to whether it is good or bad based on the person who's wielding it. One of the examples I always give when it comes to gamification of life is when you look at the gambling industry, it is 100% designed to keep you addicted, to keep you going and going and going because you're so close to winning. Until eventually you have no money left and you're kicked out. That's the bad side of it. But then you look at the good side of it. There are so many different systems and engagement that is now in place for a multitude of brands. And even if you look at, say, I'm going to speak from the perspective of someone who lives in Australia and just the world around me. But if you look at a lot of the schooling and, say, like the health industries and whatnot, there are all of these different aspects of how to get people to understand topics, how to get people to remember certain aspects. One thing I'll always remember when I did a first aid course is the whole, when you're doing compressions, singing something like Staying Alive, because certain beats per minute. There is a game to it. There is this, staying alive, and keeping that beat. Now, since then, there's been a multitude of songs I've been told also works, but that one will always stick with me. Because it's this moment of, aha, that's fun, I like that. And I think that's the crux that really started to change me when I started to look into these topics and understanding that the fun aspect was such a crucial part of gamification and getting people to remember things or learn things and have those aha moments in a way that were more impactful. So I started thinking about it. I started trying to figure out all the while. I had a love of productivity, figuring out how I could optimize my life. Mainly because I have that sort of, you're not working hard enough, do better, do like sort of grander things type mentality, because I love my work. I love that I get to do things and make things for other people. So, like a game, I always tried to figure out how to get better at that. And then that's when I found Notion. In case you're unaware, I have been using Notion for over a decade now. And in doing so, I figured out the systems that work for me and created the real life RPG system. If you're unaware what that is, it's a Notion system I created that effectively turns life into a video game. It was something I devised for myself using these techniques that I sort of studied. Gamification, just psychology. These aspects that made me go, there's this thing I really need to do, but I don't really want to do it. And make it so it's like, oh, I have that thing I can do today. If I do it today, I get 200 experience, get that gold. And it felt this extra level of fun and motivation. And then I started to think why gamification was such an effective thing. And at a biological level, we have been playing games ever since we were first created. And not just us, like as a species, but you look at, say, dogs. When they're born, they're always in this sort of mood of, oh, I need to play, I need to go, like, attack this thing, I need to go bite this thing. And it's all a way for them to learn how to exist and how to hunt and how to be safe, what are the right actions, what's the wrong actions. And as humans, we do the same. Usually, though, we do not have the freedom of acceptance for those games because we're told, oh, you can't be doing that, you look silly, present yourself well, go out in society, be a good little figure in the number system. Yeah, as you can see, I don't really enjoy that sort of mentality. I'm being a creative and an artist and someone who likes kind of stepping outside of the normal realm of things. So when I had the realization of this biological aspect, this innate function that is in us that goes, oh, if I'm playing a game and it is fun, I'm more likely to engage in it fully, aka I'm able to have that engagement and fun aspect. But also, it activates this other aspect of me where because I'm having fun and I'm engaging in it, I'm learning through experience. And that moment of learning by experience and having that be more effective is such a powerful moment to realize. Because there are billion-dollar industries in multiple different areas trying to get you to think and understand the way they want. Be it schooling, be it advertising, be it any sort of thing where they're trying to sell you something. It is all based on you learning the aspects and decisions that they want you to have in order to either succeed in their system, buy their product, or think like they do. So when you start to analyze our lives, we are devised by all of these other people's games without even realizing it. We have a system of games that we play every single day that we are unaware that we're playing. And that was a terrifying thought to me, because as someone who was addicted to playing games, I didn't realize there were so many that I was playing that were not mine. And yet the one that I wanted to play, I had not created. And that's why I started loving the idea of turning my life into a game. In case you're unaware, like, I have a love of stuff like D&D and role-playing games where you get this blank slate of a character. And yes, some people go, oh, I like this type of build model. The way that I go about creating these characters that I get to effectively live in is what is an interesting aspect of myself or the human condition that I want to play around in. It is a safe area where I can learn to be more assertive, I can learn to be more accepting, I can learn all these different aspects that have a high risk, be it emotionally, physically, whatever, in real life. Because it's a game, I can feel like I'm disconnected for a little bit and experiment that. I can learn by experience what that feels like, what that act is like. And I can guarantee I have become a much more well-rounded person because I've played in those realms. So I thought about it and gone, what about if I could take the mentalities, like in these games, and put them into real life? What are those different aspects of my life that I can start turning into a game where I can play. I can experiment and see what parts of my life I like in that regard. See what aspects of my brain and the ways I act that are both either good or bad to my perspective. And that's why I made the real life RPG system, because I have this to-do list that is a million miles long. Everyone does. And being able to sort them in a way that makes me work towards my goals versus other people's. Because, in case you haven't figured it out already, my individual purpose in life, or my individuality, is of a high importance to me. I like being able to have the freedom of choice to do what I want when I want. Now, obviously, I won't go into the aspects of like anarchism and whatnot, because I honestly just couldn't be bothered. I like my life. I'll rule my little area. But at the same time, the way that can also impact other people. So I started developing this system to make myself both more effective in the goals I wanted to achieve, but also more well-rounded, so that I could be not only a benefit to myself, but to those around me. I can spend more time in society, having fun, enriching other people's lives, spending time with my loved ones. And hopefully, at the end of it all, impart that knowledge and experience to other people. Because I learned in teaching and lecturing that I loved being able to help other people have that aha moment. Not go through and get a grade and whatnot, but the moment someone helps you get over a hurdle and you go, oh, that's happened, or oh, something's changed. I love that moment, both for myself when I get to experience it, but also helping other people experience them. So that's when I started to share aspects of this real life RPG system. Again, if you haven't seen it, there's a link in the description below that will show you the whole system, and if you want, you can get it for yourself as well. But when I started showing people, they went, how do I get this? So it really became this product of necessity, not of anything else. I needed this for myself. I needed it so that I could figure out how my brain worked and trick myself into doing the things I know I need to do. And I realized that games and having fun was the fundamental through line of how I know I'm successful when I set my mind to something. I am that type of person that when I find something I love, I obsess over it. I just go all in and then I don't stop. That's why I have all of these things up here, because I know that this aspect of my life is never going to change. I enjoy the fantasy of these different games and being able to print off like each of these figures and paint them, because that's just cool. I like that. And I'll spend all my free time doing that. It's, hell, like this thing right here. This is not metal. This is like a little thing that I found a 3D model for and then printed it, and that's cool to me. I love that. I also love that I was stupid enough to go, why don't I just put it on one of my boom-on poles, and now I have a little lantern here. It's cool. I love playing around with lighting and videography and whatnot. I'm still very, very early on, which is weird because I studied film at university. You'd think that I'd learn a couple things, but at that point, I guess it just wasn't as fun to me as it is now, because it was based in, oh, you need to pass this exam. And yeah, that's just, it's that aspect of how do I work, like up here, and how can I effectively maximize for the life that I want? Because at the end of the day, this is all based in me figuring out the life that I want to live, the aspects of it I don't want, and creating a system that helps me move towards what I don't, move me towards what I do want, and away from what I don't want. And yes, there's all aspects of games, like there needs to be a challenge, otherwise it's just a story. And that's not as fun. Because I can't remember who said the quote, and it's going to kick me later when I realise who it was. But it is the statement of, life is but a series of challenges. You can either choose the challenges for yourself, or have them chosen for you. And the realization that, oh, you can choose your suffering. There's going to be suffering no matter what, but you can choose the suffering that you want to go through in order to achieve the things you want to achieve. And if you don't, well, you get the ones that are chosen by other people. You can suffer based on the standards of other people because you didn't take action to set your own. And I'm not saying that's easy. The whole point of suffering is that it sucks and it is hard. But you choose your hard, you choose your suffering. You realize what you're willing to sacrifice in order to achieve the things you want to achieve. So, I choose games. I choose developing games that have that struggle. My system thus far is fun. I know that there's other aspects that I'm experimenting with, and there are always updates that I'm wanting to work on. In fact, there's going to be one in a couple of weeks of this upload. So hopefully it's going to be a much better experience as we go forward. But one of the key aspects that I know really drove other people's engagement with this was having a battle that was happening at any point in time. Right now, I'm versing an orc. You can't see it, but like it's right here on my screen. It's a battle that's been going on. Right now, he's down to 25 out of 140 health. But just that little aspect of going, oh god, this goddamn orc, I have to keep fighting this thing. And every day, having that as a motivator to continue getting me to do the things I know I need to do. Well, no, let me phrase that. It gets me to do the things I know I want to do. Because I'm choosing this life. I'm choosing the struggles that I have. I have my main quest, which is devised by me. If you don't know anything about my quest system, check my last video that kind of went over it. The idea of that being that I define two different types of quests in life. There is the main quest and the side quest. The main quest is your main goal that you're working towards. Anything that is in relation to working towards that goal is your main quest. Everything else is a side quest. I still have a lot of side quests. Like right now, if I just look at my quests up here, I have one main quest and then 6 other side quest categories. But that is something that I found is a good balance for me. It's not that I don't prioritize other aspects, it's just that they're a lower priority because of what I want to work towards. And in theming that around games, I can really start to understand how I can move forward in doing that. See, in game design, there are so many different underlying structures and just techniques that get people to engage in a certain way. One of the holy grails I keep referencing back to in pretty much all of my videos is a system created by Yukai Chao called the Octalysis Framework. It's 8 core principles that help derive a gamified mentality. Things like having a greater purpose that you're working towards, having that social aspect of that social influence where you're playing with other people, so therefore you're more engaged and more likely to continue through with something. Stuff like being able to customize your own path or character by having that identity connection to whatever you're playing. There's all of these different aspects, and being able to utilize them for our benefit versus the negative aspects. These are very well researched topics. They're billion-dollar industries, so why would there not be a lot of people trying to figure out the underlying structures of it all? See, I'm fascinated with how we think, how we act, how society will develop based on certain individuals making the choices, and how we can also start affecting our own lives with those exact same mentalities. So yeah, that's the basis of why I love the idea of gamification and why we play games. Because it's one of those things that I personally am constantly trying to figure out. I wish I knew all the answers. It would be so much simpler if I knew all the answers, but at the same time, it wouldn't be as fun. And that is one of the struggles I'm choosing. The idea of being able to pursue my curiosity. Because, again, one of the core principles of Yukai Chao's thing is curiosity. One of the key aspects of my life is curiosity. Being able to go, what if, or how, and just going through and figuring out something. Getting that aha moment. But yeah, that's hopefully been an interesting little conversation. I've been going for about 23 minutes. So yeah, I'm probably just going to upload this little bit of editing for colors and whatnot, but if that sounds like something, sorry, let me rephrase that. If this has been something that you've enjoyed, please write it in the comments below. I always say write in the description because that's the other, YouTube mind. Or reach out. Join the Discord. I have a whole Discord that's based around gamification, the real life RPG system. And I'd love to just engage more with people if you agree or disagree with my mentalities, but to have those conversations that further this idea that gamification can truly benefit us if we start using it effectively. But yeah, hopefully this starts the conversation and we can start building a relationship based on that, and you can start joining the whole community that has started to be built through all of this. But yeah, thank you for coming and joining this little chat. Yeah, and hopefully I'll see you next week as well when I choose another topic to just ramble on about while I have my coffee.